Hi, it's been about 10 days. So I think now that I'm 10 days removed from the race, I can talk about it now. So the course was pretty cool. It was two 25-mile loops and a lot of vert. It wasn't as steep as parts of Tiger Mountain, like table line or section line, but they were long climbs, which I think is honestly harder than a short steep climb. So the first loop, I knew what the course kind of was because I had kind of memorized the elevation profile in my head, and so I knew that the first part was a pretty big climb. The first 3 miles, it was just straight up. I was jogging, up the climb because I figured I have a long way to go. I thought, okay, why are my ankles so stiff and why are my legs just not really working? Because I was getting frustrated. I thought this is only the first 30 minutes of the race. I should not be feeling like this. And I remembered that while I had breakfast really early in the morning, I had forgotten to take in some extra carbs to top off the tank right before the race. I think that kind of bit me the first 30 minutes, but I did take a gel around the 40-minute mark and I felt immediately better. So once I got up the first climb, then it was a nice rolling descent. And then we joined onto this new trail that they used for the race because they had to completely reroute because of all the fires in the area. That new trail was super cool. Rolling single track is what I tend to do really well on. We were all in a line just going down, and we were never in a giant conga line. There was maybe 3 or 4 of us who were together, and so we were able to kind of stay like far apart-ish. Once we got out of the single track, we popped back up to the service road. Then we rolled down to the first aid station, and at that first aid station, these aid stations were totally stocked. I mean, yeah, they had quesadillas, they had water with noon in it, regular water, and they had Sprite, Coca-Cola, they had ginger ale, and they had really caloric dense items such as candy and Oreos, and they had fruit and grapes and all that. I had watermelon at the first aid station, and then after that aid station, it was pretty nice trails through the wildflowers, which were just starting to bloom. It was so pretty. I was able to get a couple pictures of the wildflowers. Then came the big climb of the race, and on the profile, it was kind of up and up and up. I think there was 3 or 4 hills that we had to climb up and over, and they were all connected. And by the third one, I'm okay, where is the end of this? Because I was getting tired. Not extremely tired, but more kind of annoyed. I thought, when is this going to be over? Because I want to get to the good part of the race, because I know after the big climb, it's relatively downhill. And so once I got to the big hill, the big mama, I had to bust out my poles at that point, really kind of power up the climb. But once we got to the top of the climb, there was a photographer there. I was so happy to see him. He got a couple of good photos of me, which is pretty cool. Then we rolled down the side of the hill and we got to a kind of cross-country section where it's off trail. It wasn't too terrible. It wasn't super technical, but you really had to be careful because it was pretty steep. It was kind of muddy in some areas. We got back to the road and there was a nice little flat section, which was a super nice break for my quads. And at one point, I was following the road and then you kind of go up and over this gate and I saw the sign, and for some reason my brain had completely farted at that point, and I thought, okay, did I miss part of a trail? Because the part where we had to go around a gate and then go down the hill again, there was a sign there, follow around the gate. I was going the right way down, but then I thought, if I missed part of the trail, am I gonna be cheating or whatever? So I went back up the trail. I think it was the Woodpecker Trail, and I was kind of dilly-dallying, and I look over and I see one of the runners on the trail below. I thought, okay, if he's on there, then I was going the right way the entire time, and I'm just being stupid. So I went back and I pounded down the descent, and I probably maybe lost 5 minutes or so, which isn't terrible in the grand scheme of an 11.5-hour day. So I went down the descent. But then I got to the aid station and then I had switched out my gels and I got new water and all that fun stuff. I put more of my Tailwind into my flask. I took a sip of it and then I regretted it immediately because I should have dumped out all of it and then refreshed it, and then I didn't. So it was more Tailwind than I should have had. It tasted disgusting. I ended up putting it away. For the race, I'm gonna grab my flask here. For the race, I ended up using just these 4 soft flasks. One, it was a lot easier to change out the bottles at the aid stations versus going in through the top of my bag to undo my bladder. And 2, if I had the bladder, yes, it would have emptied out eventually during the race, but that would have eaten up space that could have been used in the back compartment of my vest. Because I did have emergency snacks, and I had my gaiter, I had my arm sleeves, I had gloves. It was also a spot for me to put my shell During the race, I had 2 bottles in the front pockets, and I had 2 bottles that were tucked in the back of my vest. It was easy for me to just like reach down, fish, and then pull it out if I needed to. Between the first aid station and the second aid station, one of these had water and it had run out, and luckily I had another water on backup, so I just pulled it out. I like wrapped it around my hand with my gaiter just to kind of hold it in place, just to make it easier. And I got into the second aid station. After the second aid station, it was like a little bit of climbing, nothing too crazy. It was nice and gentle. And then once we got to the top of the climb, we hit a pretty gentle downhill, so I was really able to like let the legs fly. Not as much as the first descent before the big climb of the race. Once we got through the descent, there was a nice downhill section, like through the forest. That section I was like flying pretty much, and then I got so in the zone, I had tripped on a root and I rolled my ankle pretty good. It was the one time I rolled my ankle during this entire race. It was at mile 22. I did walk it out for like 30 seconds and the pain went away, and then I kept going. Went around Lake Patterson on the Patterson Lake Trail, and then when I got to the beginning of the loop again, I changed out all 4 of these, put new water in all of them, and I had actually switched from the Tailwind to the Spring Energy, mainly because I was so sick of the flavor of the cola, and I know that the Spring Energy has more calories in each satchel. I think the Tailwind, I believe it has around, I think it's like 100 calories per scoop. I did about a scoop and a half, so like 150 or whatever. But the Spring Energy is 240. So one thing I forgot about Spring Energy is that it doesn't dissolve as well as Tailwind does. So if you do choose to use the Spring Energy, shake your bottle really well, otherwise you get little bits of Spring Energy floating. So the second loop, I did not run as much as I thought I could the second time around, obviously, because I had basically a marathon on my legs. For the first 3 miles was I would jog between this log and that tree stump, and I would jog pretty good, and then I would take a walk break. I think about like a mile in, I kept the walking jogging intervals, but I made the intervals between the walking and jogging shorter just to keep going. And at one point it did start to rain a little bit, and at that point I had my jacket on. I took it off because I was hot. It was raining again. I thought, do I really want to put this on again? I ended up putting it back on because I want to say warm and kind of dry more than anything else. By the time that I got to the top of the climb and started rolling down, I was pretty much alone. I think 3 or 4 people had passed me on the second loop, and I was trying hard not to get discouraged. I thought, oh, you're doing so well, but at the same time, I felt like I was coming into this like an underdog almost, because, okay, this is my second ultra, but this is like my first 50 miler, and whenever you go into a new distance, you feel like you can be prepared as possible. There will always be someone more prepared than you. That's how I felt going into this. So I thought, just focus on yourself. You're making good time. You haven't even hit like 10 hours yet. You made it this far already. You're doing great. You're like probably middle of the pack at this point. So by the time I got to that single track part, I was alone, which was kind of nice actually, because I got to really let it rip as much as I could, having 50K on my legs at that point. And then when I got to the second aid station, that's when I had the pickle juice, because pickle juice is amazing. And if you haven't had pickle juice during a trail race or any ultra or any race in general, you should, because it's full of salt, it's delicious. It's also a nice palate cleanser. If you've been having sweet stuff all day, it kind of gives you like a reset on your palate. So the sun had broken out when I got to the first aid station. I thought, oh, thank God it's sunny. But I thought I did not put on any sunscreen today. So I probably should have put on sunscreen. Oh well. And then by the time I left the first aid station and started the climbing section, the clouds had rolled in again, and I thought, dear God, if it starts raining, I'm gonna be not happy. But it did not rain. It was kind of cloudy, which is totally fine. And then when I got to the top of the climb, I kind of cried a little bit because I was just happy that it was over and I would never have to do it again. And then I kept looking back because there was always one runner who was behind me, and I felt like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I gotta find someone to stay ahead of, not to like beat them or anything, but just to stay motivated. By the time I started rolling down that hill, there were 2 dudes who were probably maybe like 50 feet away from me. So I'm bombing down the hill, they're right behind me, and we kind of have a nice little journey together through that cross country section. And then by the time I got back to the service road, I had caught up with 2 other runners that I had seen earlier. We're all just taking a walking break at this point. I had stopped to eat some gummies. And the two guys, they were really funny. We'll see you later when you pass us. And I just kind of laughed because I thought that's probably not going to happen. For the road section, I went the same way the entire time. I got down to the second aid station and I thought, I am 10 miles away from being done with this thing. Just keep it moving. And so I had packed that energy drink for caffeine and it was pretty good. I did get like a little bit perked up, and then as I started making my way out of that aid station and kind of shuffling, I ended up dumping the rest of it out on the trail, because in my mind, if I take this and everything gets moving, I'm probably gonna have a blowout on the trail, and I don't want that to happen. So that was my fear right there. I kept pretty consistent with pace. I was walking the climbs, because in a long race like that, you are more than okay to walk, just so you know. But the once I got to the road section, I was actually moving pretty well. I was surprised because the first time around, I was kind of walking some of that. For the second time around, I'm like, I just want to get this over with. I just want to be done. I had music playing the entire day. I had made like an ultra marathon playlist that was like 7 hours long, and I let it run for like most of the day. Once I got through the second loop, I started picking songs to like start with, and I would just keep playing over again. And then I ended up switching to my Chicago Marathon playlist, which I played during Chicago, but I could not hear anything that was played over my aftershocks because it was so loud in Chicago. Not that that's a bad thing, because crowd energy was amazing in Chicago. But I ended up switching to the Chicago playlist, and it was such a different energy because on my ultramarathon playlist, there's some instrumental music in there. There's more like happy-go-lucky music, and then the Chicago playlist was like early 2000s, like pop punk rock, like Fall Out Boy, Paramore, Green Day. I had Good Charlotte in there. I had My Chemical Romance. So that definitely brought an energy that I needed to get through that last little bit. By the time I got to the section where I rolled my ankle, I had to like slam on the brakes and kind of tiptoe around the tree just so I didn't trip on anything or roll my ankle again. And I ended up catching up with these two women I had seen earlier, and I was like flabbergasted because honestly, they left the second aid station probably like 5-10 minutes ahead of me. And so by the time I got there, they were already walking out. I had spent 10 minutes at that aid station just get my stuff together. So I was flabbergasted when I saw them. And part of me wanted to try and run past them, but other part of me was like, yo, I've been out here all day. I want to just finish strong, not get injured going into the finish line. I did end up walking some of the climbs, and I kind of jogged on the flat. But by the time I hit the last like 200 meters, I was running the entire thing because I was just so happy to be done. And honestly, like, I was so surprised that I finished in under 12 hours, because in my mind, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be close to cutoff. But then I remembered my training had been pretty consistent. I was doing Tiger Mountain like every Saturday. And also just spending a lot of time on feet and building that aerobic base and getting my climbing in was really nice. And, you know, running at like an easy effort, it was good for building the aerobic base. I forgot what it was like to run at like a race pace on trail. I was able to like turn that gear and switch it on. As you saw in the video, I like predicted on camera 13 to 15 hours, and I finished in like a little over 11 and a half. So I was pretty shocked. Aftermath, I was waddling from the picnic table where I had my pizza to the cabin, which was maybe like 100 feet away. My legs weren't like trashed. They weren't sore at all, which really surprised me because after Chicago, I was sore for like 4 days because my legs were just exhausted. But I think it's a testament to how efficient I was being during the race, conserving my energy when I felt like it was appropriate versus letting my legs go, and also just like how much stronger I've gotten. And the other thing too, like I mentioned in my last video, I was sick like the week of the race, which kind of sucked. I was taking my emergency, I was doing all these things, and it kind of helped, but not really. I was able to like breathe fine. I just kept blowing like snot rockets all over the trail, as one does. Like that night before I went to bed, and like the next day, yeah, I was hacking up a lung, and it wasn't like stuff that was here. It was like down like in my lungs, and I kid you not, I was like bracing myself like against like the bathroom counter, like over the garbage can, just doing coughing and deep breathing. So if you don't know what that is, coughing and deep breathing is a way to help get you to like cough gug up out of your lungs, and to also kind of help pop your lungs open if your alveoli are kind of like shriveled up. It's the sudden force of air moving through just kind of pops them open. But anyway, so the coughing and deep breathing, I was like bracing my chest like against the bathroom counter. Just take a deep breath in, and then you breathe in deep enough to trigger yourself to cough. And for me, like having my body against the counter gave me something to brace against, so I could really like get a good cough out. And yeah, I got a lot of gunk out. It was pretty gnarly. I was like texting my friend Angela earlier. I was telling her like how I felt, like how my lungs felt like crap after the race, and I told her how I sounded like a really sad squeaky toy, just very wheezy. But that cleared up by probably like Monday or Tuesday. I also ate a lot of pizza, like so much pizza. More pizza than I've had in my entire life. So yeah, that's just a little race recap. I'm feeling pretty good. I actually started running again this week. I actually started running Sunday. Felt pretty good. It just felt good to get back out on the trails. I just normally run at Discovery Park because it's like 10 minutes from my house by car. The next race on my calendar, which I had alluded to like earlier in the year, it's gonna be the Y East Hal 100K. It's on July 16th. Eric is gonna crew me. And then I have a friend named Elizabeth who is in the GR crew. She's gonna pace me, so I'm pretty excited. So gonna start building back up for my 100K. And then a month after that, I'm gonna run my first 100 miler. That is it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, put them down below. I love you all. See you on the next one. Bye.